Welcome, dear friends, to Spiritual Resilience. I'm Tana.
And I am Bruce. We're so happy to be here.
We are so happy to be here, and our presentation is up, and we're just delighted.
We're delighted.
I just have to share that, originally we had thought, we're going to be pretty professional. And then the realization hit that even if we were to pull that off, which is a very huge if, you would soon realize the truth. So it's just us.
It's just us.
We're just excited. We got the presentation on here. So without further ado, I want to share a couple of things with you, and I will confess that I am a nerd, and I did not know this about myself until in my mid-40s. And so I'm assuming that if anybody listens to us, they will also have a little bit of nerd in them as well. And so by that, I mean, I really love information. So I want to share some information with you that I think that's really important, honestly, to being able to access some resilience of any kind in ourselves, and then further some spiritual resilience. So one thing I think it's really important to understand about ourselves is a little bit about how our brains work. Now, this is a picture of the triune brain, which Dr. Maclean coined back in the 1950s. This has since been, he was thinking that it explained the evolution of brains, and that has been debunked since. However, he gave us a whole lot of new understandings, and so we still use this today in the biz. And I think it's a really great way for us to be able to understand our brains and what the heck they're doing. So first of all, you'll notice that there's a reptilian brain, which includes the brain stem and the cerebellum. And the brain stem, this reptilian brain does for us, pretty much what a reptile's brain does for them. It is in charge of our breathing, our heart rate, our temperature, our fight flight, all of those lovely kinds of things. This is a brain that doesn't mature. It just does its job. And by the way, thank goodness. So all incoming stimulation is run through the reptilian brain. Are we safe in our environment? Is the organism okay? And then it's passed on to the limbic brain, which is the emotional brain. And this is where an emotion is assigned to that stimulus. And this is really active in little kiddos that are like 2.5 years old, where they're not having an emotion, they are an emotion. And by the way, this happens again to teenagers. And it's an important, part of our processing of our experiential data. And so then an emotion is assigned, and after those two things have happened, then the really wonderful thing is that this information gets passed on to the neocortex, which is where we are able to do our rational thinking, our abstract understanding, our imagination, all of those kinds of lovely things that we enjoy so much about our brains. That happens in our neocortex. And that's where we're able to take our experiential data and just kind of sort it away. Okay, that's what it is. I get it. I'm putting it there. I understand it. Done. And then we move on with that understanding as part of our lives. Now, that's really lovely, and hopefully the way that our brains function the majority of the time. What's really important to understand, though, is that this reptilian and limbic brain, well, the limbic brain in particular, can hijack this information and keep it from going to the neocortex if there is an assignment of emotion that is huge, that is traumatizing, that is too big, too scary, too whatever. It will send that information back to the reptilian brain. Scan. Is the organism okay? Send it on to the limbic brain. Too big, too scary, too much. Back to the reptilian, and you get this closed circuit going on, and it's kind of a mess.
So it's kind of like
And
a
that's good to know about ourselves.
emergency override.
Yes. Now, I'm going to share a little story with you about myself and my experience with this very process. So, I'm a farm girl. I know, some things about anyway. So, I'm married to my husband. We're married for 3.5 years, and we decide to move to St. Louis. Now, I, as I mentioned, grew up on a farm, and so I scorpions, no big deal. Spiders, I like them. Snakes, it's not a problem. All those things. But there is a thing that lives in me that if there is a cockroach, that is not okay. It is no okay. And so I knew moving to St. Louis, there were going to be cockroaches there. And I was so stressed out. I'm like, okay, I've got this. I can handle this. There will be no crumbs in my home. If we have to not have food in my home, we'll do that. I'm not having cockroaches. So, I made all these plans. I'm thinking it out and using my neocortex. I got this. I can do it. So we move. It's the second day. My husband's at work. And the kids are playing around. They're just little. And I go downstairs into the basement, which is not set up yet. So it's just wide and open. And out in the middle of the floor, I see a black bug. And I freak out. I'm up against the stairwell side. I'm, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I have to save the children. So I'm inching my way down the stairs. And I see right there by, the edge of the stairs is the stick that we use to lock the door, the sliding glass door, around the corner at the back of the family room. And I pick it up. And I go after that cockroach with a vengeance. Now you have to understand about me that I don't kill anything. I don't swat flies. I take them outside. I take all spiders outside, any manner of buggage. I do not kill things. I have this stick as a warrior woman, and I'm bashing the floor. I'm bashing and I'm bashing it. This bug is hopping and it's hopping and it's hopping and it's running for its life and hopping, and it hops out the back door, and I slam it shut and put the stick in to lock it. And I'm backing across the whole family room, and I'm going, oh my gosh. And my heart rate's coming down, and my breathing is returning to normal. And I hit the little table that has the phone on it, and I pick it up and I call my husband. Honey, do cockroaches hop? It's like, no. And as I'm talking through this with him, I'm realizing I know what a cricket is. I know what a cricket is. And it was a poor cricket, and it was hoping for its life to get out the back door. But this is what I'm saying to you. It does not matter what you know in your neocortex. It does not matter. When you have a stimulus that triggers overwhelm, trauma, badness, it will hijack that information. It will never get to your neocortex. You don't even have the opportunity to evaluate that in that stress response. It's going to take. So just know that about yourself as you're experiencing life and you come up against things. I mean, and I'm not saying this glibly. I mean, that was a funny story. But there are times when we are triggered and traumatized by things that are not funny. And then we get on ourselves and say, why did I respond that way? That was so stupid. I know better. Oh, my dear friends, it does not matter what you know in those moments. You are simply responding in a hardwired way. So please give yourself some grace. And when you find yourself in those situations, there are some things you can do to help yourself calm down. One of them is to breathe. I mean, that's like the major one. Just take a breath, take a few breaths, back away from the situation, sit down, calm down, talk to somebody that can help you do that. And just give yourself a hot little minute to be able to allow that flow back to your neocortex so that you can access what you actually know. Anyway, so another thing, bearing that in mind, another thing I would like us to really, explore, and this is, again, a very nerdy thing, but this is called the double ABCX model by McCubbins. And it's really talking about how we handle stressors that happen in our lives and how it affects our well-being. And we just want to, that looks, real and kind of boring unless you're me. Kind of confusing unless you school for it. But
and I was confused at first too. I have to admit, I did not catch on to this, even though we did most of a podcast when we got some of the equipment working. And I had to be walked through this, even though I felt like I had a good grip on it. But I didn't quite understand it the first time either. So we're going to go through it.
Okay. We're going to go through it. Bruce is going to walk you through how he came to understand this double ABCX model, stress model.
Okay, so the double ABCX, even though it's a linear process in this slide, it's also a cycle. So you have the pre-crisis, which is your state before you go into the crisis. You have the state in the crisis, and then you have your post-crisis. So the way that we're kind of setting this up is with this story. Aunt Tana was moving to a new city. They'd just gotten a new job as a family. And so that's kind of this truck here on the left. And then this is the new city. So this is the kind of the perspective. They're coming someplace new. And, now there's cockroaches.
Yes.
So the way to deal with
Not
bugs...
gonna lie, they still freak me out.
It's not just bugs, because obviously she said she doesn't kill all the other bugs. This is cockroaches specifically. That the way that cockroaches are dealt with are death, mainly. So, like I said, I have that represented here with the coping mechanism, which is destroy cockroaches by any means necessary. And so, to this point, Aunt Tana's coping and adaptation to this stress is kind of on the angry, terrified scale down here at the bottom, not in a very conscious way of dealing with it. So with the next slide, we have the reality of what was going on, which was a bug on the floor. And then we have Donna's perspective.
You weren't there, Bruce. Okay,
we can poke fun of me later. Right now, I get to throw stones at you. Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So these are the very evil cockroaches. Oh crap! I'm getting ahead of myself. These are the tools, which is mainly to smash the cockroach, and this is the panic level. So we hit full fight, flight, or freeze, and protect family type thing. But in all reality, it was just a crickeroach. It wasn't actually a cockroach. So the cricket kind of hijacked everything, which as she's saying is legit. So it's something that we don't particularly get to control once we're in this. It says pre-crisis on this, but I like to think of it as just like in crisis. So once we get to this point, those stresses hit and we just hit play on whatever's loaded into our three brains. And like I said, when we hit the panic crisis mode, then it just goes straight through. We kind of skip any other processing.
We skip all the bits that we could,
We- yes.
control.
and it is true, like you said, there's nothing, it doesn't ever get to the function of brain to be able to functionally comprehend what is actually happening. We just have the stress response, the full-on crisis, fight, flight, or freeze response.
Yes. Excellent. So let's go back and look one at a time at these lovely, lovely things. So first, we have a stressor that visits our life. I guess that sometimes they could lightly float down and softly, gently land upon us. But my experience of stressors is they look more like this slide. Wha-bam! And I go,
Yes.
whoa. Yeah. In my typical grace and
Yes.
Anyway.
They don't all have to be like that. There are any manner of stress levels that we can have pop up in our lives, like you're saying.
That is very true. That is very true. And this applies for all of those. And we can't just leave out some and expect to cover all of our bases. So the next thing that we have is an opportunity to look at our toolbox and look at, things that we have available to consciously deal with this stress, this stressor.
And what we've kind of loaded into our brains for protection or to, like you said, deal with whatever comes up. Exactly.
And then the C part is our perspective. So it's upside down. Our perspective can sometimes be upside down. out of the stressors and the tools and things, our perspective is the thing that probably we have the most immediate control of. We get to choose how we see a thing. Now, granted, that takes practice, but we do get to choose it. And it has a huge bearing on then our abilities to go access those tools and understand the stressor in our lives. So, it matters. It's a big deal. And then there's the crisis. So all of these things are going to determine where on this crisis scale we fall. It may well be that our toolbox is in really great shape, that stressor just landed gently as a feather upon us, and we had rose-colored glasses on and all is well. And we're in that green zone. The crisis is not hardly a crisis at all. But it could, go a different way. We could find ourselves with a wabam, stressor. We may find that our toolbox is insufficient. We may not have the ability to perceive it in a very positive way that day or from that space in our life. And that stressor crisis could end up registering in the yellow and even the red.
Yeah. And so go ahead.
Oh, I'm listening. Okay. I'm listening.
I was just saying that this is the first section of, yes. That's the next slide. Sorry, I've forgotten. This is the first section of the model. The first section, the A, the B, the C, and then the X, which is the crisis. So the stressor, our tools, our perception, and equals state of crisis. And so just to show you on the model, there it is. Yes. And even though the stressor can take place it's not a defined time, but typically this is more in moment, and it's the right before the crisis hits, or as the crisis hits.
Right.
And the rest of it kind of falls over it.
Exactly. Now you're getting ahead of me, Bruce. Okay. You might have to lose some points for that. No kidding. Just like any model or any system. It'll still be an A, don't worry. just like any model or any system, they tend to be very linear. And obviously, you and I have experienced enough life that we know that it is multidimensional. It is anything but linear. And we've got stuff coming from us all the time, from all different directions and in all different orders. This is just a way to maybe look at and dissect and analyze and understand a little better kind of what's going on inside of ourselves. So this is post-crisis, and this is the pile-up. This is where we don't ever have the opportunity in life to just have that featherlight stressor land upon us. And we deal with it and say, oh, that was a lovely experience, file it away, and move on to the next one. No, that's not how life goes. Life is a great upheaval with lots of things piling up all at once.
Well,
okay, I will own that's my experience. Bruce, do you find that to be true?
I was just saying that in this picture, we have the very thick strata, which could, represent those moments when we just get dropped on. But there are times when there's little feathers that kind of go in between. There's a little bit of filler.
Absolutely.
Those
There's
rocks on
many
top.
different kinds of chocolates. Which one should I have?
Right. But as you can see, there are several very thick strata lines. So yeah, it does pile up, as it says.
Yes. And so when we find that happening in our lives, then we can say, oh, wow, I'm right on track. It's exactly how it goes. Now, post-crisis, we had our toolbox before, and we still have those tools available. And it could be that during that experience, we have developed some new tools. We realized some new things. We understood some new things. We learned some new things from other people or other resources. And so we have filed those into our toolbox as well. And hopefully, as life is going on, our toolbox is just growing with more and more useful, meaningful, purposeful things to help us navigate our lives. So that's post-crisis. And also, can I just say, that's the good news of all of this, is that we learn and we grow and we get more able as we do. Otherwise, I don't know, this would just be a lot of pain. And then I have to say to myself, I don't know how worth it that is. So I love that this slide is the truth in our lives. Now, also, we still have a perspective, right? And we have a choice. Like I was saying before, we choose how we see a thing. We can see it as a molehill. We can see it as a full-fledged hill. We can see it as a mountain that blocks our view of everything else. And my husband is so good at making molehills out of mountains. And I love that about him. And I am equally skilled at making mountains out of molehills. I don't know that he values that in me as much as I value his ability. But again, we do get to choose how we see a thing. Oh, that can be hard, and I don't say that glibly either. That takes practice. That takes practice. It takes experience. It takes trust. It takes healing. It takes courage. It takes all kinds of things. And it's a good thing that we have a lifetime to practice, because I think it takes that long.
Yeah, and then if we just go back one, just for a moment, I had a comment on.
No, I don't.
I know.
Allowed. Okay.
So just both with tools and with the mountain and molehill, as you were saying, there's something that's repetitive and just kind of a parallel with both of these. I went down to a training camp for throwing, and I actually met Esko Mikolov.
Growing what? People, small children, little animals, rocks?
Anything we could find, really. Anybody that volunteered. No. He was throwing javelin. He was a great javelin thrower from Finland, I think.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, so, but it was full of these really great athletes. And when we were talking to him specifically, my dad asked, he's like, well, how's this for him? And he's like, it's good. He's like, well, what does he need to do next? And he's like, well, about 10,000 more throws, he should start, really getting this pattern down. It's like, that's how this is. And sometimes you just need to do reps. So it can feel like nothing's happening, like your toolbox isn't getting bigger, the mountain's not getting smaller, but it's just going to take reps. And I think that even if we're not consciously focusing on something, I mean, that's obviously a much quicker way through to a new tool or a new perspective. But even if you're just living, you're starting to build more resilience toward it every time you get through it.
That is so true. Yeah.
And if you figure it out, then just wait for another 10,000 iterations and you'll start getting better.
I love that. So how is this form? What do I need to do next? Just change it all. Just all of it. But it's great. Yeah. Fabulous. Yeah. So then after, we put those three things together, our pile up, our toolbox that's growing, our perspective that we're working on improving is going to determine our coping process. You put all of that input in and you're going to get output. And again, I think we need to give ourselves some grace to understand that that's what we're here to do. That's the point. And I feel like sometimes I'll own it. Sometimes I feel like if I can just get through this and get this master and be done with this, then I'll be happy. Well, no, that's not a truth. That's never true.
Yeah.
Because the point is that journey of doing it. That's the point.
Yeah. And for all the Brandon Sanderson
perspective.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to talk over it. I was just going to do a shout out for all the Brandon Sanderson fans with the Stormlight Archives. It's one of the oaths that he has is Journey Before Destination. So that would be what you're saying there, that quit looking for the very end of the road to be the goal, because like you said, it's the process that we're going through right now that's our life, and enjoying that is part of life.
Exactly. And I really believe that my husband is so good at his perspective abilities because he chooses to just address the thing that's there in the moment, whereas I'm 20 furlongs down going, if this continues this way, then I'm going to be in this state by the. And it's, oh my goodness. So yeah, the point is the journey. The point is the coping and the learning and the growing the toolbox and the changing our perspective.
Yeah. And no matter how bad the coping strategies are or how good they are, they're all part of that process, and they're all going to happen. And you have to see that that's what they are. And they all articulate.
Yes, they all articulate education to you. And so because our education doesn't come, the way that we thought it would look or should look, doesn't mean that it's not a beautiful education if we will embrace it, unpack it, and avail ourselves of it. Anyway, all of this then leads to our adaptation in life, our ability to adapt, whether it's a maladaptation or what they call a bone adaptation, meaning bad or good. And obviously, we're not one or the other. We're on a huge spectrum somewhere in there. And the hope is that our trend is towards a bone adaptation. That doesn't mean we're not going to backslide many times along the way, but if we're trending in a way of learning and growing, then happy day. We're right on target.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, even on this scale here, is representing just one person or the other. But like you said, it's more like a very thin slice of life is getting kind of placed on one side of the scale or the other. But in reality, it's just like that pile up. It's just one layer after another, and we're just slowly building. Like you said, it's not this cut and dried, but with my artistic skills, this is what we get. And we're lucky and grateful to have it.
It was well done. So there we go. That's our post-crisis pile-up, our growing toolbox, our practice with our perspective, putting that into the coping machine, and just looking at the output, seeing where we're at in terms of adaptation. And then, when we see that, it helps us go back and visit the A, the B, the C again, and put it in the machine to crunch. It's a good program, even though it can be painful. I absolutely acknowledge that. It can be blinding. It can be, it can feel like it's never going to end. It can feel like you're losing ground. And it can also feel absolutely exhilarating and fill you with enthusiasm and hope and direction in your life. And we're all, I believe, going to experience some of all of that. And honestly, I feel like that's a fabulous program because we need an understanding of all of it. We really do. It just deepens us and teaches us to be better humans to ourselves, better humans to one another, and better humans in our relationship to our Creator. So there's that boring looking model and our walkthrough of that and what it could and might look like and how it could and might be helpful in your life. So I think that some things that I would like maybe to invite you to is to be gentle with yourselves when you find yourself having lost brain integration and in one of those cockroach loops. Yes. Then you can just let yourself breathe, let yourself back away, let yourself sit and calm, let you avail yourself of people that you love and trust and know can help you with that process. Avail yourself of your spiritual powers because, my friends, we all need something that's bigger than ourselves because we're just not going to cut it every single time. We're just not. And I've spent a lot of years working with a lot of people and a lot of trauma, and I am very interested that they always are reaching for something bigger and outside of themselves to handle it. And I really believe that lives in the spiritual realm. And I love, and I'm going to reference this constantly because, it's my favorite book. It's all backwards. Anyway, it's Dr. Rachel Raymond's book, and it's called My Grandfather's Blessings. She says this: we cannot betray our spiritual nature without paying a great price. And in these stress models, we will pay a great price if we betray our spiritual nature. And I love what Deepak Chopra said in his book. What is it called? The Book of Secrets. That's what it's called. He said, as the proud children of science and reason, we have made ourselves the orphans of wisdom. And in my humble opinion, I believe that wisdom lives in that spiritual realm. And so I hope that we can use this double ABCX model, stress model, to examine ourselves, and the brain integration model to examine ourselves, to give ourselves grace, to allow ourselves space and time and experience to learn and grow, and to understand that even when we feel like we're mucking it up, we're still learning and we're still growing. And I love that idea, because my friends, if there isn't meaning and purpose, then I'm out. So that's what I'm trying to find in my life. That's what I would love to share, for us to share with each other, in this YouTube channel. Bruce, is there anything you want to add?
Not this time. I think some of the other points we'll expound on in future videos, and I'm really happy with what we've got this time. We have won, so congratulations if you're watching. This has been a work in progress, so we're very excited to have one, and we're so glad that you joined us, and we really hope that this in some small way can help build your tools or be another resource in your lives. And we're very grateful to have you be here, and just pray for all the blessings that we can give you through this YouTube channel, little as they may be.
If this idea resonates with you anywhere, would you consider just subscribing, or giving a thumbs up, or making a comment, or anything of those natures, which everybody tells you a bazillion times when you listen to any YouTube thing. And I'm going to add my voice to that. We just want to do this together with you, and hope that you would consider joining us. Thank you so much. We just love you, and we just want the best for you. See you next time.